Good morning, 6AMERS. The 6AMERS began in April 2020 in the heart of the pandemic. Forming this podcast is our way of extending the community and the message of the community into the world. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 6AMERS podcast. I am Skye Michaels. I'm your host of this podcast, and I'm joined by the amazing Emily Bossert, my co-host. And I wanted to just welcome you, Emily, to this beautiful morning and see how you're doing today.
Oh, thank you, Skye. It's great to be here. And, you know, one of the things we do on the 6AMers that I love so much is at the beginning of the month, we all set a word of intention for the month. So my question for you is 5 years from now, Skye, let's say, what would your word of the year be for yourself 5 years from now?
5 years from now, dreamer. For me, I never want to stop dreaming. Every single day, every single month, every single year, I want to wake up and I want to be dreaming about my life and about what the future holds and what adventures I'm going to go on and what experiences I'm going to have. And when I think of myself 5 years from now, I'll be 50. And I feel like I'll be dreaming even bigger at that age than I am even today. And I can't wait. I can't wait for that experience. So on that note, let's talk to someone who is in a person that when you think about a Compass entrepreneurial principle, dream big. Leonard Steinberg defines this concept of dream big. Leonard is our guest today. Leonard is our Chief Evangelist. He's an amazing and successful real estate agent here at Compass. He is one of the first agents that came over at Compass early on in our experience as a company. And the most important thing I think about Leonard is that every single day he talks to every Compass agent through his newsletter. And he's had a major impact on my life. Emily, this interview with Leonard, we've done several, but this one in particular, what was it about this interview that you really walked away with an aha moment or something of value?
Yes, so many of them. But first of all, Leonard, who is our man about style, check out his style for sure. Something that he shared that I thought was incredibly impactful was he talked about never getting complacent. You know, even when things are going well for us, there's always more we can do. We can always improve upon something. And I just love that as a motivation. Skye, what about you?
There's a line that Leonard uses all the time, and he uses it in this, that 80% is Greaty percent. And when I think about this line, it really defines something we talk about in the 6AMERS, that we focus on process over perfection. And in life, we all get hung up on not being able to do something perfect. What is the perfect email I can write? What's the perfect phone call I can write? What is the perfect way of working out, right? What is the perfect diet? And the reality is when we get bogged down in perfect, what happens is nothing. Nothing happens. And this line, 80% is Greaty percent, is something that we always come back to denote the fact that action always trumps inaction. And action will never be perfect. The reality is we don't want it to be perfect because nothing will happen if we're trying to achieve perfection. And I love this line. I love the fact that it reinforces that we can operate as we are, as we talked about in the Lance Pendleton interview. And it allows us to always focus on growing, always focus on getting better. So with that, let's get into the interview. Let's listen to Leonard and enjoy.
Leonard, I can't thank you enough for hopping on and joining us this morning. And, I can't thank you enough for your continued just like presence in all of our lives, as well as Compass agents every single morning. And I think almost everyone knows you, but just in case there are some people on this call that don't know who you are, if you don't mind, maybe give us a little introduction and then we'll start chatting.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Skye, again for having me. I'm so extraordinarily impressed by your perseverance and dedication to this group, which I think has morphed into something even bigger than we'd ever imagined it would be. But it's been so impactful for so many people because I always feel starting out at a certain place in the morning can have such great value to setting the tone for the day and the week and the month. Yeah. And my hat's off to you and everyone who participates in this call because I think it's just so meaningful. So I'm Leonard Steinberg. I'm the old guy in the room. I've been with Compass now for almost 7 years. I joined when it was still Urban Compass, and we were just transitioning from becoming a more rental-focused entity into the more traditional real estate model of resales and rentals and new development and all the other good stuff that we do. But most importantly, what we had wanted to do from that moment on was infuse this hybrid of high tech and high touch. So I try bring the high touch to Compass. I started out as company president, but transitioned into my role now as Chief Evangelist, which is focused exclusively almost on culture and advisory. And of course, we have regional presidents around the country because we've grown a little bit in the last 7 years, I would say, a little bit. But what I do love is that there is this regional aspect of Compass still that is so wonderful. So when I look at the Philadelphia office, when I look at the Williamsburg office, when I look at the Santa Monica office, each office represents the smallness of Compass as well as the bigness of Compass. And that to me is so exciting that we've been able to maintain this intimacy and collegiality within our territories and our areas that feels like a small company. And yet we have this big ecosystem behind us that gives us the support and strength that we so desperately need in these much more challenging and complex times that we're in.
Yeah. Leonard, what goes through your mind as you joined 7 years ago? You probably can name every person at Compass at that moment, right? And now, like, what feelings are going through you in this moment when, we are this nationwide company about, on the precipice of some pretty big news and things that we won't talk about too much. Obviously, we're in a quiet period, but like, what feelings are you feeling personally about this?
I grew up in a family where my parents instilled in me this belief that whenever you think things are really good, appreciate them like crazy, but never get complacent or arrogant. So I think that is the first thing that I feel every morning where I wake up, where regardless of all the successes we've experienced and will experience, I always say the best is yet to come. I always say eliminating arrogance from the equation is so important. It's so important because the minute that sets in, I always say arrogance equals stupidity. And the minute we become arrogant, then we're becoming stupid, because at that point you become complacent. So I think the very, very best is yet to come. Whereas I look at the past 7 years and say, wow, that's pretty remarkable. I look forward to the next 7 years and say, well, if you thought the last 7 years were good, the next 7 years will be much better. And the reason I say that is because if you look at what we've done in the last 7 years, I think what's most important is, number one, we've brought together really good people. And without good people, you can never have a great organization. But most importantly, in the last 7 years, and especially now at this moment, we have built up an infrastructure. And that infrastructure is, to me, like the remarkable foundations of a building. Yeah. If you have truly strong foundations of a building and you have systems and you have all sorts of mechanisms in place, that is when you can start building a truly remarkable building that has, limitless potential. So now I see us basically at the beginnings rather than at the conclusion. I think the next 7 years are exciting years. And that's where we will be challenged mostly to take further what we have done, which I think is build a remarkable company that is definitely setting new standards. But most importantly, it's not just setting standards for ourselves. It's driving a narrative, I think, for our profession that is as important. And I have this Christmas carol that I sing every now and then when I see some of our competitors work. And I'm going to sing now, which is going to be really annoying. If you want to mute, this is the moment to mute. But this is my little Christmas carol. When I look at some of our competitors, I sing, it's beginning to look a lot like Compass everywhere we look. So I do think it's kind of funny because that to me is wonderful, because all of a sudden I see brokerages that were entrenched in the past exploring the future. I see agencies and brokerages that in the past might have had a pretty tarnished reputation for being bad players, talking about collaboration.
Yeah.
And I see all these messages and words that have filtered out into our profession, which I think is so important because we are not just here to create a big company. There'll always be competitors amongst us, and we celebrate that.
Yeah.
It always elevates what we do.
Yeah.
But most importantly, we have to elevate a profession because our profession is under attack, combined. And in that lies this tremendous opportunity to elevate what we do to a point where the consumer looks at us and says, those people deserve what they earn. They're real professionals. They add real value to my life. And that's the future of real estate.
And there's so many little nuggets there that I want to try to capture all of them. I think the biggest one, though, is the elevating of the profession. I mean, and that Christmas carol is going to be ingrained in my head now, Leonard. Thank you very much. Because every
never
time
see Christmas the same again.
Yeah, my previous
Christmas for everyone.
Yeah, my previous brokerage now is black and white, which is beautiful. So it helps our little market share. Anyways, so let's go down the humility route, because I think that's I think the key to everything is that low ego and staying humble while being confident. And that balance is like this. It's a really tough balance. How do you personally maintain that balance? Because you run a really big business. You're, thousands and thousands of people. And, it's very easy, I'm sure, for Leonard Steinberg to be like, I'm pretty good. How do you check yourself? Do you know what I mean?
I learned a lesson from Barbara Corcoran because when I started in this business, I started at the Corcoran Group when Barbara was still running the company. She sold her company in 2001. A lot of people think she still runs the company, but she's actually been out of the company for, I think, something like 18 years. But one thing she told me that has resonated because I see it again and again and again and again every single year, almost every single day. The best agents in our profession are those who at the end of the year have a little bit of paranoia and anxiety and go, I'll never have a good year ever again. What am I going to sell? I don't know what I'm going to do. In that, I think, lies the greatest gift of all, because complacency is deadly. The minute you say, I've arrived and I've done it all, that's the minute you stop thinking. That's the minute you stop being creative. That's the minute you stop working hard. So I think the greatest agents have some element of anxiety and paranoia ingrained in their DNA. Yeah. I think I have a little bit of that too. I blame my parents for everything, so I might as well blame them for that too. And I definitely feel that anytime, I remember when we bought our second home in South Africa, and the prior owners had the most beautiful Lamborghini, Mercedes, and Rolls Royce parked in the garage. And I said to my parents, why don't we drive cars like this? And the first thing my dad says, like, these people will be bankrupt any day now. I'm like, oh, okay, so we're not going to get one of those cars. Yeah. And it was a great lesson because, you know what, to annoy me even further, 2 years later, those owners were bankrupt. It's a big message in life. The minute you start getting complacent or arrogant is the beginnings or pretty much the tail end of a decline. Yeah. And that is deadly. So I think the key is for all of us to be on our toes, celebrate the milestones, but just like failing fast, I think we have to succeed quickly too. Yeah. Success moment, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, always. And it's one thing I've kept going throughout my career. Not that I'm the most successful agent in the world, but I think some of the success I've achieved is because I've always been thinking, what's next? What's next? So I started out with a quarterly report to my building. Then I made it a monthly report to my building. Then I made it a monthly report to the whole, environment that I was working in. And then I made it a reporting now on Instagram, where I report weekly on what's happening. So I constantly want to evolve and improve, and always tap into the sentiments of our time, look very, very closely at what is happening, and then think next, which is part of my fashion DNA, which is where I started. Yeah. You're always thinking, so everyone owns a short skirt this season. Will they want to buy a short skirt next season? And chances are they don't. Yeah.
That's great. And you can relate to that message of the paranoia in December of like, I'm never going to, I remember I sold 90 million in 1 year, my best year ever. And I remember waking up in December like, well, it's over.
Over.
That was a good run. And then all of a sudden, like that paranoia.
But paranoia is good. Paranoia is good.
Yeah.
Of course, within certain limits, because I think some people get so paranoid as to be almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I embarrass myself. Yeah. But I do think in that lies the ingrained DNA to innovate, think, work harder, work smarter, learn, re-educate yourself, collaborate, communicate, and a whole host of other attributes that make for a successful and enjoyable career.
Yeah. Now, you said something that was really subtle. I don't know if everyone picked up on it, so I want to highlight it. But you said you started out with your building quarterly, then you went to monthly, then you went neighborhood. Now you're on it. I think sometimes people at Compass, we get overwhelmed. They join, right? And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. You join and there's so much here. You're like, oh my God, I can't do anything. How do you make sure when you set a goal that you start to incrementally, and a concept I talk about is 1% every day, right? We just get a little better every day. How do you instill that in your daily life?
Well, I look at Compass and all that it offers as the restaurant with a really big menu. Yeah. And my natural inclination is to sit down and order everything on the menu because I love food. It's in my DNA as well. But I think what one has to be very careful is that when you go to a restaurant, just like when you come to Compass or when you're in Compass, is not to feel the pressure to be a glutton. Yeah. The key is to pick the things that you like and work for you. Yeah. And then to dig deep into those, but not to close your mind off then to trying new and different things. Yeah. So as much as I automatically want to sit down at a restaurant and have a kale salad and some salmon, boring. I also try every now and then to sit down and look at that menu to see what other options there are and then try some new things, because I do think in that lies tremendous value. And I do think it's tempting at Compass to order the kale salad and the salmon repeatedly and then just have a boring life. At the same time, though, I'm never disappointed by eating my kale salad and salmon because I know exactly what I'm going to get and I do it really well. Yeah. So I think digging deep into things that you can do very, very well, but then always keeping an open mind to explore more is very, very meaningful. But one baby step at a time. And I think we live in these over-anxious times where we expect instant gratification, instant success, everything quick, fast. And I know I relate. I'm exactly that personality profile. And then I take a deep breath. Or just like we did this morning, we do a little meditation and breathe a little differently. And at that point, you start becoming a bit wiser about the order in which you do things. But I think doing anything well is very meaningful. I also have an annoying saying, which I repeat again, which is 80% is Greaty%. You don't have to get things perfect to have them become really effective. And if you look at my daily email in the morning, you will find typos and mistakes. I'm certain of it. Why? Because 80% is Greaty%. I get that sucker out every damn morning. So that's good enough. And if I make a few mistakes along the way, so be it. I can improve the following day. Yeah. The same is true with anything you do in your career. You may not get it 100% correct the first time. You can get it out, do really good work because quality matters, and then improve it.
It's so powerful. And I think we often get obsessed with the perfection, which prevents us from even doing anything. And I think that, and at Compass, it's very easy to hit roadblocks and then stop. This doesn't work. This doesn't, I wanted to do this and it doesn't do this. And it just, we got to get obsessed with the process rather than the perfection. And that quote, that should be a t-shirt. Leonard, 80% is Greaty%. We would sell it out. What is your kale salad and salmon of the Compass platform? What are the things that you constantly go back on the menu and eat all the time, right?
Well, I love collections. I'm a great fan of collections because I think collections is the ultimate tool at Compass that messages high tech and high touch, especially when in your collections you are adding insight and intelligence that are non-Googleable. So I think that is a big definer of who we are as professional agents. As professional agents, we have to be able to provide all the intelligence and data and information that our clients already have access to, but we edit for them, we curate for them, and most importantly, we install intelligence and insights that they cannot Google anywhere. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you've created you aren't valuable then. At that moment, you become invaluable.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, the great tool, because it's the perfect tool of our times, where it's infotainment.
Yeah.
The picture entertains, the words inform, and then the data provides additional intelligence, and you mix that package together and you have compass magic. So I think that's really kind of a compass magic moment, and has been ever since I started.
Yeah.
I also think in Marketing Center, we have so many tools now that provide so much opportunity to create content so quickly and so easily and seamlessly that even if an idiot like myself can make that happen, then any one of us can elevate. And I do think at the very top of our game, there will always be agents with their teams and their structures and everything that can do extraordinary work. But then what about the rest of us, like myself, who maybe doesn't have a full-time, marketing consultant or social media expert? The ability to do these things quickly, seamlessly, efficiently, and really easily. I always say Google fast, Apple easy. If Compass can be Google fast and Apple easy, then we have really succeeded. So that has to be in our, our mission with everything and anything we do going forward.
I love that. And I think too, with collections, it's like we got to get creative. It's a tool that we can be so creative with, because we can use it with a seller to create a live, I call it the live CMA, right? The CMA that continues with that property. We can use it obviously with buyers. We can use it with past clients. We can create market reports. There's so many uses of it. The other thing that I love about collections is it's a really easy way to wean your people off of the Zillow sort of, addiction, we'll say, because you don't tell them stop using Zillow, because then they're going to be like, wait, I don't trust you. You say use Zillow, but then add it to the collections. And instead Zillow becomes a side tool and collections becomes the main tool. So I just love that. I love that.
The other big tool that collections speaks to beautifully is the one theme I am repeating again and again these days, probably to the point of annoying people. But I think as professional agents, to compete, we have to stop this obsession with transactions. Granted, we all want to make a living, and we have to make transactions to be able to make a living. Yep. So that's nothing we should take away. But if we do not message and deliver to the consumer an advisory service, a professional advisory service that starts well before a transaction occurs, then provide them with the ultimate transactional experience, and then thirdly, provide them a service that continues forever after that transaction. If we don't do that, then we are risking being replaced by some entity that's exclusively focused on transactions and can actually only facilitate transactions. Yeah. But there are transaction entities and people right now. What about, open door? I'll buy your house for a fee and then resell it. It's done. It's quick and easy. But does that entity advise you when you should sell, if you should sell, if you should buy, when you should buy, why you should buy, where you should buy? So a big chunk of what we do is not just facilitation of transactions, it's advisory. And advisory always begins early if it's smart and methodical and purposeful, and then it always continues forever after. And if you look at the space of a 60-year time span, so assuming people leave home when they're 20 and they need housing for 60 years between the age of 20 and hopefully 80 and beyond, that's 60 years of a housing need. Yeah. And then you know the statistic that people stay in a home now for an average of around 13 years. You divide that up, and maybe we're going to get paid for 4 transactions in a lifetime, but provide 60 years worth of advisory. Yeah. All of a sudden, our commissions look cheap.
Yep.
Because if you're only getting paid at the time of a transaction, then you're cheap.
Yeah.
So I think to me, that is very, very critically important, because I speak to my clients on a regular basis, whether it's communicating to them. They don't have to respond to it, but when they get the data and the insights I'm sending them, that's a gift, right? But it's the gift of insight and intelligence that may have great value to them, and they may not call me for 7 years or 10 years. And by the 11th year, they give me a call.
Yeah.
Now, that's an amazing service over 11 years that they're not paying for.
Yep, exactly. And I think the other piece of this too, Leonard, how many conversations about real estate are they going to have in those 60 years with people they know? And that's
do
the
think,
other piece, right?
Exactly. And I do think we often confuse or belittle what we do to simply real estate. Because when I say real estate, that sounds very transactional.
Yeah.
When I speak to the concept of home, there are 1,000 aspects to that beyond the transaction. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, if you become a real professional and expert, and there's so many exciting things that are being built out right now that are going to come out over the next few months to fuel that narrative, then we will have created a entirely different value add and value proposition to what we bring to the table as agents.
I love that. What are 3 ways that agents can be advisors, like real tactical, right? What are 3 techniques agents can use to move from transactional into advisor?
You know, number 1, 2, and 3 is the following. We have to let them know. We have to communicate to the consumer that we aren't just seeking to buy or sell or rent. That is the biggest error I see agents making, is that they do not communicate that message loudly and clearly, that I am here for you, and I'm not here for you simply to transact. So don't feel embarrassed or uncomfortable calling me because you need advice, because you want to remodel your kitchen. And is it the wise or unwise thing to do? Everything that we do in our world gives us this deep, insightful understanding of home and real estate. And we understand what adds value, what doesn't add value. And that matters to someone who's going to spend some money on a whole host of things in their home. Yeah. So the value add that we bring to the table has not been clearly communicated for decades. And the vast majority of agents simply message, I'm going to buy for you, I'm going to sell for you, I'm going to find your place in the world, et cetera, et cetera. And that's great. And that's a big component of what we do, and probably the most valuable one. But as valuable is the advisory role we can provide them for themselves, for their friends, for their colleagues, for their family, et cetera, et cetera. So when you speak to one client with that message, you're messaging 100 people as a minimum, because everyone knows at least 100 people, whether it's people they work with or family or friends. Yeah. So imagine if you're speaking to every client to message that you can help them as it relates to all things home, from an advisory perspective as it relates to real estate. Then all of a sudden, your 100 connections or 1,000 connections get multiplied by 100. Yep. And then all of a sudden, when someone's thinking of buying a home in Aspen, but you're based in Miami, or vice versa, then all of a sudden you've become the go-to automatic response person they think of as it relates to all things home. Yep. And when you've done that, you have reached utopia. It's real estate utopia. So anything and everything you can do, number 1, 2, and 3, to message to your clientele that you are there for them before a transaction occurs, during the transaction if it's needed, and well after, forever after that transaction occurs, because you are there to advise them on all things real estate. Yeah. Then you will add real value to your clientele.
And you know what just came to my mind, Leonard, is that Compass is trying to build a single platform technology-wise for this. Well, the reality, everyone on this call should listen to this. We can become the single platform as human beings. And once again, so that just sort of crossed my mind that, wow, we need to become the platform for our clients of that data and allow Compass, to continue to build behind us to support us. That was really cool.
It's the story again of high tech, high touch. Yeah. Obviously, this big, huge ecosystem that we're building out is the brain that we message. Yeah. So we have to look at it that way. Yeah. I cannot remember anything and everything that the ecosystem can provide me. And because of that, it fuels accuracy. So our technology is not there to replace us. Our technology is there to fuel us to be better, to be smarter, and most importantly, to be efficient and accurate. Because one of the biggest complaints the consumer has about agents is that they guess answers when they don't know them, or they don't know the answer. Yeah. And if you have the ability via technology to find the answer and provide really accurate information and insight, then you have removed one of the biggest negatives people have about our profession.
Yeah.
And that to me is a spectacular opportunity. And that opportunity starts now.
Yeah.
So I think over the next 7, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the more we can build that out, the better off we're going to be all in solidifying our role and our profession in the sphere of this planet.
Leonard, one last question, then we're going to get to Emily's. Emily will do our 6 for 6, but a theme I'm trying to harp on, because I've never have experienced my agents being this frustrated in a market. And in my opinion, the antidote for frustration is gratitude, right? When you feel frustration, it's literally a switch that you can flip and go into gratitude. And you think about a year ago today, where we were sitting, right? And it's like, as frustrated as you are with this market, we could be in last year's market a year ago, which none of us would want back. How do you deal with frustration, especially in this current market, Leonard? And what are you grateful for?
Well, I have selective Alzheimer's, so I choose to forget a lot of stuff that happens in the day. I can say that, by the way, because my dad had Alzheimer's. You aren't allowed to make fun of Alzheimer's, by the way. But I do forget very quickly and very easily, thankfully. I know people really, live and drown in their miseries and complexities and difficulties. And that's very, very difficult and challenging. And you have to do whatever you can to take that out. But I think my mother taught me the best lessons, as mothers tend to do. The best lesson is always you have to be extremely thankful for what you have right now, this very moment. You've got to do that, because as in April of last year, we were very frustrated. But did we think we would have this frustration that we're experiencing now? No. And here we are. So whenever things seem dark and difficult, no, it could be worse. Now, I think what's most important for us, though, is to understand that the consumer who's living in a home who may want to sell it has to be provided a good reason why they should sell.
Yep.
And I don't think saying, sell your home, I can get more money for it, is a good enough message.
Yeah.
So I think we have to provide some very good insights to the consumer who may want to sell, why selling now would have great value to them. And I think the key messages are low interest rates are rising.
Yeah.
Will they soar way up? Unlikely. But as they go incrementally up, it's possible that prices stay where they are or come a little bit down.
Yep.
So this is that moment. And I'm asked too often, where do you think the market will be a year, 2 years from now? And my answer is, I don't know anymore. Because if you think of the speech I gave in Miami a year and a half ago, where I predicted everything in 2020, every single one of those predictions was wrong. Every single one. And every one of those predictions was so well researched and was backed up by tons of brilliant people's minds, not my mind. I wasn't relying on my mind.
Yeah.
So predicting the future way down the road is very, very dangerous. But what I tell everyone is, I am really good at dealing with markets as I know them. I don't want to guess the markets. And this is what I know. I know we're in a supply-demand crunch. So if you're a seller, you're enormously advantaged. Number 2, we're in a very low interest rates environment. Number 3, we're coming out of COVID, so there's a sense of optimism. Number 4, we have trillions of dollars worth of stimulus being injected into the economy. That'll last for a year and a half, 2 years maybe, but who knows how much impact that'll have on the economy long term. So if we want to focus on the market as we know it right now, this is probably the most extraordinary time on earth to sell a home. Do you want to capitalize on that? And what are your living ambitions for the next 5, 10, 15 years? And that's where the advisory role kicks in, where it's not like buy, sell. It's about asking the right questions. Yeah. What do you assume you will be doing 3 years from now? Would you prefer to accelerate it and do that now, rather than wait 2 or 3 years when you don't know what the markets will be doing? So we have to provide our sellers with great reasons as to why they should consider selling now, even if it's an accelerated timeline.
Yep. I love that. And what's great about that too is those talking points apply to someone selling the $150,000 row home in South Philadelphia or the penthouse in San Francisco. that's worth 20 million. And it's so powerful, guys. And Leonard, it's just amazing, amazing nuggets.
The one thing that we all have in common, by the way, all 8 billion of us on this planet, aside from our need for shelter, because we all have that in common, we have to sleep somewhere at night. Yeah. But the one thing we all have in common, which painfully I have just come to realize in the last few weeks, we're all aging. And the reason I say that is because a 18-year-old is aging just as much as I am aging. Every day and week and month that goes by is aging. And aging fuels the trajectory of life. And the trajectory of life doesn't change or shift. And last year we learned that there's a beginning and middle and an end to everyone's life. And in that lies the greatest opportunity for inventory, because there may be people with very large homes that are empty right now who may want to downsize. They have a market again, which some areas lost for 2-3 years and longer. There are always opportunities when seeking out the trajectories of life, and that includes marriage, birth, divorce, growing fortunes, lost fortunes. That doesn't change. That never stops. The machine keeps rolling down the hill. Yep. And in that lies our greatest opportunity. People are not going to put their lives on hold anymore. They learned last year that putting your life on hold is not fun. And that in the past, when you put big decisions on hold, life kept moving along and you may have lost a year or 2 or 3 unnecessarily. Yep. So in that lies the greatest hope for inventory moving forward. And as Mike Bloomberg said, if you want to bring down the cost of housing, build lots. So I think you're seeing a new wave of building to catch up 10 years, a decade of under construction.
Yeah, so powerful. And the one message I'm going to give everyone on that note is you need to be in relationships every single day. Because if you're not in relationships, you're not going to be able to know what stage of life people are in, what's going on. Are they having births, deaths, marriages, divorces, job changes, etc. The more we dive into our relationships, the stronger we are. And the one thing, we have 2 things that the other companies don't: listings, relationships. These are our 2 key things that we need to ride into this future world that we're going into. So, Leonard, I know we went over on time a little bit. We started a little bit of a fun ending to our calls. And Emily, I'm going to give it over to you. Called they're 6 for 6, 6 quick questions at 6 a.m. Even though it's 9 a.m. our time, like you get a little break. But Emily, I'll pass it over to you. And any questions too, Emily, that you wanted to just throw in there? Gratitude.
Great. Leonard, thank you. You have totally done what you said by setting the tone for the day. I know I can see everyone smiling on this call, and I've taken more notes than I think I've ever taken. And the best is yet to come. So here are your rapid 6 at 6, Leonard. How would you describe your perfect day?
My perfect day is starting with the 6AMERS.
Yeah.
You wanted a politically correct answer. You got one.
No, but Leonard, we want truth too. What is your perfect day? What would it look like?
Okay, my perfect day, to be perfectly blunt, is to wake up in the morning, read a lot, and then head off to a beautiful terrace with a view, have a print newspaper, get served breakfast with a view, preferably at the Hotel du Cap in Antibes.
Oh,
not going to happen. But you have to have a dream. That's my perfect day.
That sounds wonderful.
It just keeps going. But if you were to ask for a professional day, my perfect professional day is to know when I wake up what exactly I have to do so that I don't have to think. Because if I don't have to think first thing in the morning, I know exactly what I have to do. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it's mapped out in my calendar. Not having to think saves me a lot of stress. The more lists I have of things I need to get done and the more I can check off, the more calming it is. And then what I always do is go into the day with an open mind, because that 4 o'clock appointment is more than likely either going to cancel, move the appointment around, or come late. And I'm not going to let it bug me. So I remind myself of that. And thanks for the meditation.
Oh, I love it. Okay. If you could know the total and absolute truth to one question, what would that question be?
What is the market going to be a year from now?
Good one. Good one.
Leonard, what is one thing that you would love to master?
Oh boy. do you have an hour? I mean, there's just so many things. I would love to be able to ski without breaking my neck. That is one thing I would love to do. But unfortunately, the last time I went skiing, my brother has the most beautiful chalet in Switzerland. And you'd think that's a dream. You go visit your brother, you go skiing, après ski. Blah. Well, the last vision of that is me basically wrapped up in skis and snow and this lucky not to have broken my neck.
Leonard, who, if you could spend the day with one person, anyone in the world, who would it be?
I have great admiration for Bill Gates, not because he's extremely wealthy, but because he seems so devoted to the future of our planet. And that to me seems like the ultimate achievement in life, that you can actually dedicate that much time and your wealth and your brain capacity to making life better for the next generation. I think he would be a fascinating discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what is your favorite book or movie?
Oh, geez, this is embarrassing. I find humor in the movie Mommy Dearest. I know it's a very dark and sad story, but it's so campy and crazy that I have actually, unfortunately, I can almost memorize every line from the movie. So with these 6 questions, I'll use one of the lines. It's like, why must everything be a contest?
Leonard, that is so dark. My mom would never let me watch that as a child.
My mother sent me to the movie on my birthday. She said, go watch this movie and you'll find out how good your life is.
All right, Leonard, last question for the day for you. What is the first thing on your to-do list after this call?
Boy, it's a long list, but the first thing is I'm supposed to be on a meeting at 9:30 and it's 9:45. I'm 16 minutes late, which is totally in keeping with my calendar. I always tell everyone I'll either respond to you immediately or never. So if I don't respond to you, better reach out again.
Oh, man. On that note, let's get you to your New York meeting. I am eternally grateful for your consistency, your every single day. It is a motivating factor for myself personally, and I can comment for everyone on this call. Like, you are pure inspiration for all of us at Compass.
You wrote the book, though. Don't underestimate that. You wrote the book on all of that.
I'm following in your footsteps, my friend.
Thanks for listening to the 6AMERS podcast. If you liked what you heard on this episode, we would love to hear from you. So leave a comment and review, and don't forget to subscribe. For more information on our 6AMERS community, guests, book recommendations, and more, visit our website at the number 6AMERS.com, the6amers.com. We also invite you to follow us on Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and fun. See you next time.